10-987-654 3210.
This introduction sets the frame for how the material is approached and why this particular perspective is used. The spoken text that follows is not meant to describe an outer situation, nor to guide the listener through a technique. It functions as an internal report, articulated from within experience rather than about experience. The language stays close to perception, sensation, and structure, avoiding external explanation in favor of direct inner observation. The conceptual foundation comes from the work of Carl Gustav Jung, whose research provided a non-pathological framework for recurring inner phenomena. Jung treated archetypes as stable psychological structures that emerge under specific conditions, not as symptoms to be corrected or fantasies to be dismissed. This distinction is central to how we work with the material. When such experiences are interpreted as pathological, confusion and destabilization can increase. When they are understood as structural and shared, orientation becomes possible.
Gravity releases its claim on the spine. The water matches skin temperature precisely. 98 like 6 degrees. The boundary between body and liquid thins to nothing. Photons stop hitting the retina. Sound waves stop reaching the eardrum. The external signal severed. The brain, accustomed to constant input, turns up the gain on internal amplifiers. Like a radio searching for stations in the space between frequencies. Around 20 minutes, the noise of the day dissolves. Grocery lists, email threads, arguments drift away like debris on a receding tide. The screen clears. But the brain does not tolerate emptiness. The darkness begins to organize itself. Not random static, not neural noise, but shapes emerging. Like photographs developing in reverse, not constructed but revealed, as if the darkness held them all along. Faces appear in peripheral vision. Landscapes unfold with strange familiarity. Corridors walked before in dreams. Thresholds crossed in states unnamed. The images carry weight, a specific density that personal memory lacks. You map this territory. The gallery beneath personal experience, where figures stand independent of invention. Not metaphors in that moment, not symbols require an interpretation. Just encounters with structures older than individual biography. The channel unchangeable, daydreams permanent control. Thinking about mountains, beaches, faces from memory. But when archetypal image activate, the station locks. The figure holds attention, like a statue discovered in a cave, demanding recognition through sheer presence. This autonomy marks the transition from personal depth to shared floor, from biography to a texture. The mind drops through its own history and lands on foundations built before birth.
This autonomy marks the transition from personal depth to shared floor, from biography to architecture. The mind drops through its own history and lands on foundations built before birth.
A king sits on a throne in the darkness. A wise woman appears at a cave mouth. A dragon coils in the chamber's corner. Not hallucinations, not pathology, just riverbeds where psychic energy flows. When the dam breaks, channels carved by a collective experience into the bedrock of consciousness. The float continues. The figures remain. The gallery open. The exhibit's active. The viewing begun.
For beginners, this approach offers a clear entry point. There is no requirement to see anything, achieve a state, or confirm a theory. The value lies in learning to observe internal processes without judgment and without prematurely assigning meaning. Archetypal language provides a map, not an expectation. It allows newcomers to recognize patterns if they arise, without assuming they must.
The shadow appears first, most frequently, most insistently, not necessarily monstrous. Sometimes just a feeling of unease in the peripheral darkness, something lurking that recognition has been avoiding for years.
In the tank, escape routes absent. No phone to check, no light to turn on, no conversation to redirect attention. The shadow sits on the chest with the weight of unacknowledged content.
Judgments denied, failures hidden, the figure standing in a corner of every mental room.
Jung called this the gatekeeper. Recognition must occur before descent continues. The hand extends, the acknowledgement forms, part of the house, part of the structure, present.
Then, the hero surfaces, the ego structure attempting victory. Over formlessness itself, tension gathers in neck and jaw. The archetype of struggle, trying to conquer void through effort and achievement.
But void, unconquerable, only endurable, only receivable. The sword drops, the striving, released. And in that release, another figure often emerges.
The Anima appears for some, the Animus for others. Guide to interior territories, sometimes manifesting as voice. Distinct, clear, different in quality from ordinary thought chatter. Not speaking constantly, only when needed in whole round truths that land with certainty.
In deep theta states, this contact feels electric, like reunion with something forgotten but recognized. Emotion washes through, tears mixing with salt water, not from sadness, but from relief at being heard by the half of the soul that existence in daylight obscures.
Underlying everything, the Great Mother, the ocean itself, the tank, a womb recreated, dark, warm, liquid, weightless, total containment without walls, surrender without submission.
This archetype, not a person, not an image, a state of being, pre-individual existence. The ego resists because return to source feels identical to dissolution. Dying and coming home, occupying the same coordinates simultaneously.
These figures, not concepts when water holds the body, weather systems of the interior, storms and calms, voices and silences, the ancient drama playing while the body floats. An observation continues.
What we've noticed in the tank regarding these figures, when the gatekeeper appears, resistance, unease, blockage, forcing past it intensifies the tension. Recognition loosens it, not analyzing, just, there, part of the house. The threshold opens when acknowledged, not when fought. The hero impulse follows predictably. Jaw tightens, neck locks, trying to win the float. What works? Letting the sword drop. Effort creates more effort. Release creates space. If Anima or Animus activates, that clear, sparse voice differing from thought chatter, listening works better than interrogating. It speaks in complete sentences, rarely, precisely. Pushing for more silences it. The great mother state, total containment, dissolution fear, reads as danger but functions as depth. The ego interprets disappearance. The system registers stabilization. Distinction matters. These aren't instructions, just recurring patterns, personal in sensation, shared in structure. Knowing they're mapped doesn't reduce the intensity. It removes the question, is this pathology? And replaces it with, this phase, documented. The archetypal framework functions like knowing constellation names before stargazing. Doesn't create the stars, makes navigation possible through pattern recognition.
The pump activates. The filtration cycle begins its hum. The heavy lid lifted. Gravity reasserts its claim on muscle and bone. The shower runs. Salt washes from skin. but the images remain sticky, clinging like residue from a dream not yet processed.
Integration begins here, and without map, confusion intensifies.
Why this king? Why this cave? Why emotions too large for biographical explanation?
The intensity of archetypal encounter can destabilize when interpreted as personal pathology.
If the figures mean individual breakdown, if the emotions signal individual failure, the abyss widens.
Jung's framework offers coordinates. Not the first person to see this. Not the first swallowed by the whale. Not the first to fight the shadow in the darkness of deprivation. The territory charted. The experiences cataloged not as reduction, as recognition.
Pathology removed, magic retained. The wise figure appearing, standard feature of human depth, listenable, but not worshipable. The shadow emerging, universal structure, faceable without shame.
The map allows navigation without drowning. Context for content, language for the unspeakable, like a flashlight in a dark room, not changing what the room contains, but preventing collision with furniture already present.
The tank accelerates the process. Jung called individuation in silence. Layers peel back faster. In darkness, figures step forward sooner. In weightlessness, structures reveal themselves without the gravity of daily existence, pressing them flat.
Archetypal language prepared in advance functions like knowing the names of constellations before stargazing. Not creating the stars, not reducing their mystery, only making navigation possible through recognition of pattern.
Floating becomes dialogue between conscious surface and preformed structures beneath. Listening for which figures appear on the stage today, honoring their presence. Then, return to daylight, carrying a piece of the map, washed clean, oriented.
Not esoteric, functional, mechanics of soul revealed by silence, understood through pattern, navigated through recognition, that the depths shared, the floor common, the gallery open to all who descend.